Hello, and welcome to Chapter 6 of InnoBuzz's online marketing course. Today we're going to be looking at AdSense, which is fantastic. When they approached me wanting to get an entire course done on AdSense, or an entire part of the course done on AdSense, I was pretty excited. AdSense is just absolutely fantastic as a publisher solution, and we're going to cover a lot about it in this part. So as usual, we're going to start with an introduction. We're going to talk about AdSense approval, installing AdSense on your site, and then optimization last but not least. So what is AdSense? AdSense is the counterpart to AdWords. Both services are owned and managed by Google. AdWords, as we discussed previously, is an advertiser solution. AdSense is a publisher solution. So what does this mean? Well, AdWords, if you have an ad to be displayed, that's going to be the medium you'll use. However, if you're a content-based provider, then you're going to be using AdSense. So content-based providers have videos, sites, blogs, games, and the whole idea is that you need a lot of viewers. Just having a few hundred a month is never going to make you a lot of money with AdSense. The whole idea here, the whole idea to your success comes from the sheer mass of viewers, and that has to do with the standard click-through rate. Of the hundreds, if not thousands, of publisher advertising solutions out there, you should probably use AdSense. And that's because PPC success revolves around how closely an ad links up to a potential clicker. Now, for example, I don't have a kid, so an ad that shows me pictures of cribs saying come buy one, well, I'm not going to ever click on that. I have no interest personally. So this is called targeting, and AdSense excels because of how good its targeting it is. And then, of course, if there are no ads to display to someone interested in that particular topic, then that's no good either. So AdSense is also great because of the massive number of advertisers. And while it's notoriously tricky to get information about what exactly the revenue sharing principle is across different companies, AdSense is well known for being, for the past few years at least, they've been well known for being one of the highest, if not the highest, revenue sharing advertising solution. I'm sure there's some small startup that offers rates higher than AdSense, but for an established firm that does a great job, AdSense, Google's program here, gives you about the most. So what does this mean, revenue sharing? Well, whenever someone clicks on an ad, a certain amount of money goes to Google and a certain amount of money goes to you as the publisher. Google gets paid for providing the service, and you get paid for providing the content and getting the viewers there. The more money that the advertiser or the host provider takes, obviously, is the less you make. So you want a program with lower revenue share, and AdSense is quite reasonable. I believe it's, what was the latest figure I saw? Around 30 cents is what they take on, or 30%, I believe, is correct. And that's very, very reasonable in the advertising world. So, you think AdSense is great. I've sold you on using it over all of the other programs out there. And just for the record, I personally do use AdSense for myself. I find that for me and my needs, it meets them perfectly. The interface is great. It's what I recommend to my clients. It's just easy, simple, and as long as you have a good, real website and you're not doing any shady stuff, AdSense is going to be the program for you. So with that in mind, tons of people do get banned or denied from using AdSense every single day. And why? It's because their account and their website don't meet certain standards. You have to enter contact and payee information. You must enter a valid email and mailing address. Your site has to be live, no under construction stuff, and it has to have easy navigation. You personally need access to the HTML source because that's how you place the ads in. It must be in a supported language. Now, AdSense supports many, many languages, but if you're in something incredibly rare, then perhaps not. And finally, your site needs to have original content. Remember, Google is the company that scans the web, and when you're duplicating content, they know. So not only does that hurt your SEO, it also means that you don't get approved in AdSense. So playing by the book, doing the right thing actually really does pay off. The rules. Ah, yes. When beyond just getting through the approval process, there are also rules that have to be followed all the time. You cannot encourage clicks. That includes on your site. I wouldn't recommend doing it by email because if you do happen to mail it to a Gmail account, well, Google will no doubt have that information indexed as well. So you cannot encourage clicks. And that's because the whole idea of the program, the whole idea for the advertiser is, like, keep in mind, as a publisher, you want to make money, but as the advertiser, they want people to buy their product. And so the whole key to the system working is for real, interested, targeted people to be clicking on those ads. So if you're encouraging clicks, like if you run a blog and you know it's small and you want to quit your day job, and you need just a little more money, maybe just an extra $30 a day would allow you to get to that point. So you might be tempted to say, hey, you know what, guys, I'm really close. I would really appreciate it if about once a week you'd come by and click on an ad. That would really help me out. Except that doesn't work for the advertiser. So they're spending money, but not actually going to get anything back. And so Google disallows that. If you encourage clicks, your site will get banned. Your content has to be above board, so no hacking, gambling, drugs, adult stuff, and no sales of restricted products. And that again, that's just decency standards, which of course many corporations follow. You can't do any weird code stuff like keyword stuffing or any of those weird hacks that we talked about in the SEO chapter. You cannot hire third-party traffic sources to maximize clicks for you. So across the web, you can, like through advertising and media buying, you can legitimately buy a lot of traffic to your website. However, you can also buy traffic from providers where they will just come to click. And of course, you can't do that for reasons we've previously discussed. You are not allowed to enter the ad code. It has to be left as is. And you cannot place AdSense ads in pop-ups, emails, or software. I think the one exception to that rule is on emails. If you are using a service like FeedBurner to provide your RSS feed, and your RSS is set to enable both email output as well as display AdSense ads, that's okay. That's not a problem. So how do we install AdSense on a site? Okay, so there's really just two steps, and it's incredibly easy. One, you create an ad inside the program. I'm going to walk you through that in just a second. Two, you then copy the code and paste it on your site. And then I guess a third step would be you got to wait a little bit. Google needs time to crawl your site, and then as soon as that ad code gets pasted on, Google says, oh yeah, hey, this is a new place. We need to scan this website, we need to crawl it, and figure out what kind of ads will best be targeted to it. But of course, it's not just as simple as an automatic instant process. It takes a little bit. That crawler can only move so fast across all of the different websites. So what you'll often find when you first install AdSense on your site is it's going to give either no ads at all, or just garbage ones that aren't relevant, or it'll give you public domain ads. You don't get paid if public domain ads public service ads. You don't get paid if public service ads are clicked on. They're just there purely to communicate important miscellaneous messages, oftentimes from government providers. So with that in mind, let's take a look at how to create an ad inside AdSense. Okay, so how do you actually create an ad and get that onto your website? Well, it's pretty simple. You're going to log yourself into the AdSense interface, and you're going to click on the My Ads tab here. From here, you're going to see a whole bunch of options on the side that we'll cover later, but we're going to click New Ad Unit. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is name our ad. So InnoBuzz test. We then are going to select the kind of ad that we want. Now, there are all different kinds here, and we're going to talk about the different formats you can do later on, but we're just going to work on Leaderboard. Leaderboard is an ad. It's about this size here, this little box, and it generally goes either at the very top of a content-based website or right below the header are the best places to put it. So we're going to select our ad type. We can get text ads only, so this would be an example of a text ad here. We can get image and rich media ads only, which are the picture and flash oriented ones, and then you can do the combination. So we'll decide to go for the combination of both. Backup ads, show a blank space, and then custom channels. Custom channels are a way of organizing your ads. So if you do this across multiple different websites, then you can easily track the metrics. So if I were to have leaderboard for site 1, leaderboard for site 2, leaderboard for site 3, and I was interested in tracking how well the leaderboards across all my sites were performing, then I would create the custom channel leaderboard and add it to that. However, just for the sake of setting this up right now, I'm not going to do that. This is all in customization. We're going to focus on this a lot more later on when we get to the optimization part. So we're just going to stick with the default one. It'll look like that. We're going to hit save and get code. Here's our code. You will copy it, and then you will paste it into wherever portion of your website that you want it to be. And within just a few short minutes, boom, you're going to have an ad pop up. Really, when it comes to setting up AdSense, it's incredibly easy. Things that used to be complicated before are now automatic and simple as simple can be. So that's all there is to it. And I'm going to delete this right off the start because I don't need it. Okay. And that's the overview. Let's get back into things. Boom. Maximizing your AdSense relevance. Okay, so Google does a great job at automatically ensuring relevance, but there are things that you can do to help the crawler and help the system out. You want to wait a little bit. I mentioned earlier that the crawler takes time to explore your site and then analyze that data and then sync up the most relevant ads to your content. So step 1, wait a little bit. Step 2, if you have any sensitive content, get rid of it. You want to ensure that if you're using robots.txt that you haven't inadvertently blocked off, say, 90% of your website. It's a mistake that's more common than you would think. Most of the time people will enter in a URL, forget that it also factors in all kinds of different things. Like if you enter in a high-level URL, then you are going to get a lot of data blocked off inadvertently. Session IDs in the URL will block crawlers. Don't use frames. That's old school technology. You should not be using it anyway. Ensure there is adequate content on your website. The way the crawler works is it analyzes the keywords in your content and then syncs up the ads that it think matches best. So logically, a site that has almost no content is not going to have very relevant ads. You want to ensure that the ad code hasn't been modified, and for even more ways, you can just click on that link there, and it'll take you to the Google support page where the list will grow by about 40% more. Okay, so you've done all this. You've gone through that checklist, you've gone through the Google checklist, and the ads are still not relevant. Okay, it's time to force a little bit of action here. You're going to use this code, and there's two different types here. There's code to include, and there's code to exclude certain keywords. So if you're running a site on cheap laptops and it's showing you ads on PCs, then you could use the bottom code on the bottom to ignore keyword PCs. Now, one of the things that happens rarely but still happens is someone will be running a blog and they will have content also in their sidelines, and that content might be a little bit different from their core content in the blog. Now you want to display the blog content. Ads are the most you want to display ads that are relevant to the blog content. So what you would do is you use the first lines of code and wrap that around your entire content box on your website. Or sorry, not your entire content box. You'll wrap it around all of your content, and that will help AdSense target your actual blog as opposed to your sidebar, and that'll get ads more relevant. You can also pack it with keywords, but do not stuff it, And another rule, don't abuse this code. This code is to help you if you're not getting relevant ads. If you are doing something like adding in keywords that are not relevant, Google is going to frown on that mightily, and it's against their policies. So please don't do that. Ad formats. Let's take a quick look at this. Okay. So Google, one of the things I love most about the company is across all their services, their help pages are incredibly useful. So one of them is ad formats. If you're looking at, hey, I have this content-based website, I need to put ads on, I don't know exactly how, well, or what sizes it should be, how should I design my page around them, which you do need to do. Here you go. Here's a list of all the different ones they have. So for just standard display, here's the text ads that you can choose from, and so it's got the different sizes, right? So here's a square ad, 250 by 250 pixels is what that means. Video ads, mobile ads, and then finally link units. Link units are a really handy way to increase the amount of money that your website earns, actually. The way this works is you are only allowed to put a total of 3 AdSense ads on your website, but you can also have a couple of link units in addition to this. And so I know that you look at them and you're like, well, no one would ever click them, this isn't going to work. And a lot of people choose not to use them because they do make your site look a little bit trashier, admittedly. But at the same time, they are a tried and true way for many web users to increase their revenue. More ads on the website means more clicks. I'm not sure how well link units convert for advertisers. I suspect for them that a lot of these link units end up being accidental clicks, just because you can disguise them in your website so easily. Now, that's against AdSense policies. That's not something that you're supposed to do. But just by the pure basics of it, I think if someone's scrolling through, say, a blog, the homepage, for instance, and they've got thousands of words on that homepage, and you're clicking through, and then all of a sudden making cheese jumps out at you, you're going to click that without even necessarily knowing that it is, in fact, an ad. Good for the publisher, bad for the advertiser. Now, again, that's just my projection, and I suspect it's true just because the ads by Google doesn't necessarily, okay, it conveys clearly that it's an ad, but if you're just scanning through content, you're going to ignore that. And also, making cheese, that's not highly relevant. You know, it's like it doesn't, when we were looking at setting up AdWords, there was a whole bunch more information that you could put in. So there was the title and then 2 lines of code and then the URL, or 2 lines of text and then the URL. Making cheese, not quite conveys so much of an offer, so relevance becomes an issue. But hey, you know what? That's an advertiser problem. As the publisher, you really just want people to click on those ads. And with that being said, they do work. So I would recommend, if you can put it on your website without sacrificing branding or making it looking cheesy, I would highly recommend that you do so. So those are our basic formats across display, text, video, and mobile units. Done. So let's talk about how you make money with AdSense. There's really 2 key factors: the amount of traffic that your site is getting and how optimized your site is. And you really need to work on both of these things if you're ever going to be successful with AdSense. Now, throughout this course, we've talked about all different kinds of ways you can get traffic to your site: SEO, strategic partnerships, having a well-established brand that people know about, social sharing, and then a plethora of other features. That's pretty well established. And if you've been running a content-based website for a while, you're going to know all kinds of different strategies, like doing guest posting, and things similar to that. There's tons and tons of ways to maximize your traffic, but you also need to focus on optimization. Now, when we're looking at getting traffic, I had a potential client approach me not too long ago. He wanted to set up an AdWords account to buy traffic for AdSense, and I ended up declining taking on his account. Why? Why did I do this? Well, it all boils down to, well, in this case, ethics, really. But there's just simple mathematics behind this. and it's all boils down to something called CTR. We've talked about it before, your click-through rate. Okay? Now, if you buy people through AdWords to come to your site to click on your ads, you have leaks, and the leaks are in your conversions, your click-throughs. So let's just do a simple example here. Let's say that you are spending $1,000 a day to generate what could we expect here? 3,000 visitors to come to your website at about 30 cents cost per click. Okay, so now you got to think, what's your AdSense CTR going to be, right? So you spent $1,000 to get those people there. So the required click-through rate is going to have to be pretty high. You would have to get more than 30 cents revenue per visitor. And I can tell you right now, that's not realistic. Most websites are never going to achieve that goal. It just isn't possible. You would need 100% conversion rate or click-through rate on your website at higher than 30 cents at an average of 30 cents cost per click, which is possible in some niches, but 30 cents to 50 cents is about normal. When it comes to getting a click, Google's official thing is you can expect to make between 5 cents and about $1. I think even sometimes it goes up to $5 is absolutely about as high as it gets in some niches, but 5 cents to $1 per click. So no, you're not going to be able to buy traffic through AdWords or through other PPC to get people to your site, and that's simply just because not 100% of the people are going to convert. Now, if I could turn to you and say, yeah, spend the money in AdWords, and 100% of people who come to your site will convert, and then you'll make great money. It would be a perpetual money-making machine, and every single person on the planet would be rich, and advertisers would be happy, and that would be great. But it doesn't quite work that way. Actually, not everyone would be rich because the bidding would just increase as the platform popularity increased, and it would become not profitable really quickly again. So if you're thinking about buying viewers, hey, maybe it can be done. Maybe if you negotiate a couple $1 million deal with a media buyer, you can drop it down, drop down your total cost while maximizing your CTR to make it work. But doing it through PPC, through paying standard rates, I don't think a single company ever has been able to do it. And if not ever, I've never heard of a single company doing it now. Your CTR through AdSense, you can expect to have like the highest an average site can get will be pressing 5%, I think is probably fair to say. I can't say for sure. It differs per website. Myself, I do AdSense optimization for clients, and if you can push higher than 5%, you're doing really, really good. So if you're spending money to get only 5% of people to convert at a revenue that's similar to your cost per click, it's just not worth it. You just bleed money out. Okay, so as mentioned, I do optimization myself, and I think one of the biggest losses of money across the web, and this is lost for advertiser, it's lost for Google, and it's lost for publishers, so everyone loses, is the fact that people fail to optimize their websites. Why do you do it? Because just straight up by spending a little bit of effort or spending a little bit to get someone else to do it, you can actually save a lot of money, or increase your revenue by a lot. So one client approached me not too long ago wanting to optimize his website, and with a couple of simple tweaks, we instantly grew his revenue by, I think it was 3 tweaks total. We grew his revenue by 25%, just instantly, which is, I think for most companies would agree, that would be a massive gain. If you had a blog that was making $100K a year and I could optimize it and turn it into 125 or 150 or even 110, I don't think a lot of people would complain about that. So how do you optimize and what do you want to optimize? Okay. The four biggest things are colors, channels, placement, and the type of ad displayed on your website. And you test it all. Everything has to be tested. It's easiest to just split test it. And here's a good analogy. In finance, there's something called the Black-Scholes formula or equation, and it works on the principle of a binary tree and the binary principle of stock. That is that if you buy a stock, it has two possible outcomes. Well, really three, but really two. You can either increase their value or decrease in value, since stocks don't really stay the same, which would be the third potential. So you buy a stock, it'll increase or decrease, and you have this buy or sell option. And if you keep going through, you create what is called a binomial distribution tree. Okay? AdSense optimization is awesome because it allows you to reverse. If you buy a stock and the stock value decreases, then you lose your money. That's all there is to it. With AdSense optimization, if you make a mistake, you just simply revert back. So you can only succeed. You cannot fail. Failure would be failing to increase your AdSense rates or your conversion or your revenue at all, which is basically unheard of. If you haven't done optimization, I think the odds of you just randomly picking the best possible formula across these four and other optimization techniques, it's very, very low. So let's talk about some of the kind of the tricks of the trade here, if you will. Colors. First of all, for most sites, on average, it will be best if colors blend similar to your website. That is stark contrast versus blending. Blending seems to work better. Hey, it's not intuitive, is it? And this is where testing comes into play, and people have tested this. Consulting companies have tested it, individual owners, website owners, and people have found that in aggregation, for the most part, choosing blended colors are best. However, for some sites, it is true. Stark contrast works better. So what do? You test it. Channels. Channels are new to, I believe it's AdSense version 3, which is the most recent one. And Google started allowing you to control exactly what categories are displayed on your website, which is fantastic, because if you have that cheap laptops site, or a blog about cheap laptops, and you have in one of your in a few of your posts you talked about children, and all of a sudden ads for cribs start getting displayed. Well, you can just go through and cross off the categories that would display cribs and start bringing in, which would in effect bring in more ads on cheap laptops. So that's important. Your placement is absolutely critical. From my experience, it is the most important thing. It's where your ads are on your website. Changing your placement around can have huge impact. As a general rule, we've talked about the fold before in this course, which is just the nice little bit in the window that you can see when you first go to a person's or first go to a website. Generally, having two ads above the fold is the way to go. You're going to want to use, we'll talk about that in type in a second. And having an ad all the way at the bottom of the page is often great. Google is exceptional at helping you decide where to place your ads. Their help database has numerous articles on this, and taking the time to read them and pay attention and follow those guidelines is really critical. And finally, the type of ad that you display. So do you remember when we were picking out the ad and we were just looking at basics for standard display ads, and we had the option of text, image, or a hybrid? Choosing which one of those can actually make a very big difference as well. When it comes to actually doing the optimization, you can, of course, do the standard way. You can do multivariate testing for a more complicated setup, or you can do A/B testing. Most of the time, I end up doing A/B testing. I find it just keeps things nice and simple and gives us a really clear walk down that binomial distribution tree. For sites that have tons and tons and tons of traffic, as discussed previously, you'll probably find multivariate testing a better way to go. But for the average person, split testing is good just because you can continue walking yourself forward. up that binomial distribution tree. So really, all you would want to do is you would want to simply set up. You can, if you Google around, you can very easily find a piece of code or get your web designer to do it, or your programmer to split the ratio at which ads are shared or ads are displayed. And so the tried and true way of doing it is to create a new ad. Like, let's say that we're going to try out 2 different colors of text ads. We'd have the one we're currently using, and we're going to have this new one that we're going to try. Okay, so we're going to set up this code so that each one displays 50% of the time. And then after we have gathered statistically significant data, which happens once we cross the, I believe it's just over 100 clicks count for each one of them, we have enough information to say, hey, look, this new one's performing better, we're going to stick with it. So we move that one to the primary position, and then we pick a new color, and we see how that one performs. Okay, and now that we've optimized colors, sweet, we're going to fix our channels up, and now we're going to change our placement. So we've got location A and location B, and that one's a little bit more complicated. Using that tool that I showed you earlier, Google's website optimizer would be more handy for placement. Or you can just take the other route where you will have statistically significant data at the initial point from placement A, and then you can just simply move it. You don't need to test them simultaneously, although that's certainly the best way. So you simply move the ad to a new location, see which way performs better, and you carry on forward. It's a bit of a process, and it's hard to say exactly how long it'll take because it depends entirely on how long or how many clicks your site gets a day. If you're getting thousands and thousands and thousands of clicks a day, great, you can move this through very, very rapidly. If you're getting only 10 or 20 a day, then it's going to take you a few days to build up to statistically significant data. And that's important because until you reach that about 95% confidence interval, you can't really begin making important decisions about which one is actually better. And of course, more is always better. Like, don't shoot for 100, shoot for closer to 500 if you can. I mean, if that's going to take you months to hit that point, then it's not worth doing. But if you can reach 500 in a day, it's totally worth doing it because then you have, such a high confidence interval that you can really make a tried and true decision as to which one is better. And now, let's look at a nice little demo about AdSense. I've got it queued up here. Nice. Okay, so here we are back on the My Ads page. And I'm going to try to avoid showing sensitive data. This is an account that I used for smallish websites that aren't super important. And as you can see, I've been using it for quite a while, although I still do have some active ads going on. So depending on the product that you're using, whether you want it for games, mobile, search, or video, there's all kinds of different ones you can use. Okay? There's an option here to set your ad styles. Come on. Okay, as discussed, right? We saw that earlier. And then here's your 2 locations for content and for feeds. Now, I mentioned feeds a little bit earlier in the course. Those are just your RSS feeds, which are many content-based sites use them. It's just a way of, if you don't know what they are, it's just a way of continuously keeping your viewer aware of what's new in your website without having them either have to come to your site or sign up for email updates. They can use an RSS reader like Google Reader or Google IG, or there's a plethora of other ones that people use. And it just allows them to aggregate all of the sites that they're interested in without having to individually go to them. Because some people choose, like personally when I see an article, like when I use Google IG myself, and when I see an article that I want to read, I click through to the website because I find it nicer to read on an actual properly built website as opposed to in Google IG or in Google Reader, which I've also used in the past. However, not everyone prefers that. Some people like reading straight in their RSS reader, and that's where you'd use feed ads. That's where they come in. Okay? So with content, ad URLs, custom channels, and URL channels. It's probably worth taking a second to talk about what these mean. We covered custom channels before. That was when we were looking at the leaderboard ad, and we wanted to target or to tag multiple ads, multiple leaderboards as leaderboards so we could track their performance. Done. URL channels, which I'm not going to click on because that's going to take you to sensitive data about my websites. It allows you to track data by website. That is not by default in AdSense. You have to set up URL channels. So for me, I've got several AdSense that are mapped out here, and as a result, I set up URL channels so I can keep track of how each website is doing. For the most part, that's pretty common sense. However, those are the little tweaks that if you weren't listening to this course or if you just didn't know, you'd probably miss it and then you lose out on some data. Allow and block ads. So this is something that Google is continuously beefing up and making better. You are allowed several different options now. You can block general categories, sensitive categories, and certain ad networks, as well as, this has been around for a while, advertiser URLs. So sometimes what ends up happening is you will end up advertising your competitors, okay? Which is bad. You don't want that. So this enables you to, in fact, block those websites. You would grab the URL by right-clicking on the ad and then head on over to advertiser URLs and block them. Blocking out categories we discussed earlier, sensitive categories, most sites will want to block. You don't want adult ads, and I think by default that's pretty much, no, it's not. I'm sorry, it's not by default turned on. And that's generally the way to go. Now, one thing that's a little bit tricky with general categories here and with blocking them is if you have multiple websites in one account. So let's say that I have apparel websites and finance websites and health websites. Those are three very different fields. You can't just turn around and be like, well, I'm going to block everything except apparel, because, which you can't do anyway. There's a limiter. You're only allowed to block 50 total categories. And so 16, 12, 21, 20. We're over the 50 mark already. You would only block a few at this point in time. But it is worth pointing out that if you are running many different websites across this, then this tool becomes much less useful because it's much harder to gather significant information as a result. And finally, as you would expect from Google, you get a ton of performance reports. So here's one that I pulled up from way back in the day, March 8th, 2010 to April 14th, 2010. Wow, guys, that was 2 years ago. Doesn't seem like that long ago. So here's all the information I think the average user could really ever want. It really is a ridiculous amount. Here's everything mapped out by day. Woo! Making big money back then through AdSense. It allows you to go through different products if you have any, your custom channels, your URL channels, your different sites, different countries, different platforms. So that's where your mobile comes in, and then your different ad units and whatnot. This continues to get beefed up more and more and more, which is absolutely just fantastic. And you can really gather all the different data that you could possibly want. So that's your brief overview of the AdSense interface. And thanks so much for listening to this part of the course, guys. It's been great. So if you are a publisher, consider throwing AdSense on your website and then make sure you optimize. It can really do good things to your bottom line.